This is your Utica Comets pregame show with Eyewitness News Sports Director David Edelstein. Utica Comets Faceoff.
Well, it's been a while since we've been together, but it's good to be back in the studio. Thank you for tuning in this evening as we get set for Utica's first game in the Adirondack Bank Center in exactly a month. Tonight, the Comets host the Rochester Americans. That's the same team Utica played in its last game back on March 10th. And man, that feels like such a while ago now. So let's get a quick refresher on what happened, a little trip down memory lane. As usual, the Comets look to get ahead first, and it's early in period one here. Rochester trying to clear, but gravity brings the puck down. Josh Tevis gets on it through the legs, and Hugh McGing is in front for his first professional goal. Comets lead 1-0. Less than 3 minutes in. You get your hockey hug, Hugh McGing, and you get to lead the line for the fist bumps on the bench. Now it's late period one. Lucas Jasek is in the right place at the right time as he intercepts an Amerks clear attempt. Mitch Elliott, with a few moves, slips it right to Gadjevic, his 8th goal of the season at that point, and at that point it also led the league in goals. The Americans do come back, though, with a goal in period 2 and period 3. So the 2-2 time goes to overtime and now a shootout. So Hugh McGing, who already is riding that high from his first pro goal, gets the nod, and he scores again. It doesn't count as an official goal on the stat sheet, but the Comets will take it on their way trying to win. Jake Kiley stood on his head to bring it to the 4th round of the shootout, and here John Stevens puts the game away. The Comets win it in a shootout, and by the way, 3 of the Comets' 5 games this season against the Americans have actually been 1-goal games. But right after that game, it would be a while since we saw Utica again. Things got a bit tense. The American Hockey League announced that a Rochester player tested positive for COVID-19, so the Comets went into precautionary protocols. Then the league announced that the Comets were following protocols themselves after a Comets player tested positive for COVID-19. The team then resumed practice on March 19th, but quickly went back into protocols the next week, finally returning to practice again this Monday. A lot has happened over the past month in that time. Utica's main rivals, Rochester and Syracuse, of course, have been playing games after Rochester finally got back from their quarantine. Obviously, the Comets' record hasn't changed. We're looking at the standings based on points percentage this time, though. The Comets head coach Trent Cole actually made an interesting comment earlier this week, too, saying that he feels like the Comets have less pressure to actually perform right now as they get back for their first game in a while after dealing with such an intense COVID-19 situation, because the importance is being placed on getting the players to be healthy enough to actually play a hockey game rather than being perfect and winning those games. Let's look at team comparisons, though. Against each other this year, the Comets have the slight advantage with 3 wins. Again, 3 of 5 Comets games against the Americans this season have been 1-goal games. 2 of them actually going to shootouts, including that one we just saw. The Rochester and Utica power plays are the 2 best in the North Division by percentage. Meanwhile, both their penalty kills actually are in the bottom 3. And there are some names that have made it all happen for Utica along the way. We've got to maybe even remember who's on the team at this point. We've talked about Gadjevic leading in goals. 7 goals in his last 6 games. That's more than half the number of goals he had all of last year in just a quarter of the game. So for any statistics fans out there, that means he's scoring twice as fast as last season, and he also leads in points as a result. Lucas Jasek now holds the team lead in assists by himself with 7, and one big change for tonight's game is that Sam Annis is back from the St. Louis Blues taxi squad. He leads the team in points per game, and rookie Jack Rathbone, by the way, is the only other Comet averaging more than a point per game at this point. Gadjevic also leads in shots. He had 7 on that March 10th game. That's 1/8 the number he had all of last season in just 1 game alone, so his effort paying off. And looking at the Americans in points, Arttu Ruotsalainen leads with 13. He's a name you'll hear a lot. In assists, Ruotsalainen, Oskari Laaksonen, and John Sebastian D all have 8. As far as scoring is concerned as goals side, Brett Murray has 6, so they're spreading the wealth. Points per game, it's D with 1.2, and meanwhile 2 other players do have exactly 1 point per game. And if you're wondering who's putting the shots on net, well, he might not be in any of the other statistics. Michael Mersch with 35, but is probably setting up those opportunities for everyone else. It's been a while since we've seen the names in action, though, but we're getting closer by the minute here. On the other side of the break, the Comets general manager Ryan Johnson joins us to discuss how the Comets navigated the past month in quarantine and how the team plans to get back in full action. Stay tuned.
You're watching the Utica Comets Faceoff.
Utica Comets have now been on their longest break since the 11-month break between the end of last season and this season's delayed start in February. And of course, that was due to COVID-19 situations as we were learning exactly how everything would play out. But this time, now that we know a little bit more, the Comets have been able to get back now within a month's time. Comets General Manager Ryan Johnson is joining us now to talk about kind of what the Comets have been through this past month, how he feels about it, and exactly how do you get back to playing after such an awkward break mid-season. So, Ryan, as you are here with the Utica Comets fans, and we know that some get to be back in the building tonight, but most will be watching right here on WPNY. I was talking with a friend the other day about a learning process. Like, are there some things that you can have in place, like you have a COVID-19 protocol in place, but you need to maybe experience to see how it plays out and really learn from it. So I'm curious if there's anything you have learned through this process and what that might be.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've learned a ton through this, and I'm still kind of processing this. You know, I think, you know, through my career as a player and now in management, I observe a lot of people that I think do things the right way. I believe that success leaves clues for people to follow. I've always felt that as a player, and even now I'm watching people in high pressure situations. It has taught me a lot, and going through this, it's taught me how much you really, you know, you operate as a group. It was constant communication, and that you empower people around you for a reason, and you empower people to have a voice around you for a reason, and people that I work with know how important their voice is. And this was, there was so much information coming in from our doctors, from Roman, our coaching staff, who has a pulse every day on the players and where they're our group in Vancouver. It was important that we tackled this as a group, and everybody was informed and everybody had a voice. And like I said, at the end of the day, I had to make some decisions, but empowering those people to have a voice and opinion, I think, you know, really helped me in my decision making.
Ryan, I mentioned this earlier in the broadcast, but I was actually quite surprised after practice on Tuesday when head coach Trent Cole told me that he feels like maybe it's the players or the coaches, but that some of the pressure might be off of the team on having to perform and having to win games, because really the focus is so much on just getting healthy again. From your perspective as the general manager who kind of had to orchestrate this whole past month and make sure everyone is on the same page, what kind of environment were you trying to set for these guys to be able to say, hey, I feel comfortable here going through this different kind of environment and process? Even
from day one, myself, Trent, Roman, our entire group conversation was our expectations need to be not performance-based, but still health and safety. If a guy is having a tough time and needs to leave the ice or go to the bench or take a breather, we still understand what we're trying to come out of here. And it's very important that we've had this week to build up. I'm not just flipping a switch now and going, all right, let's go back out and win hockey games. And is there a little rust at times and moving the puck and timing? And absolutely, but that's natural. We're almost back into a initial training camp setting where guys are knocking the rust off a bit, and that's okay.
Ryan, you've often mentioned how much you feel like hockey is a team sport, not just because you literally need multiple guys on the ice and multiple guys on the bench to make this all happen as far as the game is concerned, but just about how much goes on behind the scenes. And you've had the experience being a player actually in this same organization, and now you're helping lead it. So how did you really go about working with everyone, telling the players what they needed to know, just really getting information out there between the team and the players to make sure that everything ran smoothly?
I think it's important to understand how much, work, from Rob Esch to, our front office people, to our coaches, to our training staff. You can't imagine the day-to-day, stress and worry on these people and the players, and we've worn it on our faces some days. I think you'll, going into this, I said to our group on a Zoom call, is we're going to navigate some stuff, but I want you all to be able to do it with a smile on your face, because a lot of it will be challenges we won't have control of. And I've had some laughs with our group over the last few weeks that there's been some days where they're not smiling or I'm not smiling. And I was like, hey guys, maybe I've gone back on my word a little bit, but we've been challenged maybe a little bit more than we thought we would be. So we got some humor out of that. Certainly that helped us through this, but we're coming out of it with a smile on our face. And like I said, from our front office to our building manager, to our workers, to the coaching staff, the players, the trainers, it's been a tough time, but you know, great people find their ways out, and I'm surrounded by a bunch of great people.
Well, Ryan, we'll let you get back to some of those great people, and also we know that some fans being back at tonight's game will have smiles on their face as well. Utica Comets General Manager Ryan Johnson, thank you so much for your time. And I know we've heard from Johnson and others that they're excited to welcome those fans back for the first time in 13 months. About 400 fans are allowed at games now, and just remember there are some protocols. Either you need to show proof of finishing the vaccination series, have a test within a certain amount of time, as you see here on the screen, and when you get there they're going to ask you to go through some processes, and as always, continue to wear the mask unless you're eating. So it's almost time for Puck Drop against the Crunch right here on WPNY. On the other side of the break, we'll send it over to Comets broadcaster Jason Shia. After the game, tune into Eyewitness News first at 10 on WFXV and Eyewitness News at 11 on WUTR. Until then, enjoy the game, everybody. And as always, stay friendly and stay tuned.